Today I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Now, I want to read up on Hindu scripture. And one of the key texts is the Bhagavad Gita, a short part of the huge Mahabharata. It's only 700 verses. But I was told by some Hindus not to read any old translation, but to read the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And what I've learned is that this is the version that the Hare Krishnas or the ISKCON movement have written. Now, something that is very important to me as a secular reader of the Bhagavad Gita is that I don't want any theological bent, of which this does. So maybe we'll discuss who the Hare Krishnas are and why this is important for them and why this doesn't work for me. More colloquially known as the Hare Krishnas, because that is what you hear when they publicly chant. The ISKCON movement, or the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, was set up in 1966 by, and I got the name written down, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So Prabhupada within the 60s created a new branch of Vaishnavism. So Vaishnavism is a monotheistic belief within Hinduism, which is mostly known as a polytheistic belief, but Vaishnavism is that, like, the one God, so all gods lead into Vishnu. Now, the Hare Krishnas believe in order to get to God, you have to go through Krishna. And guess who features heavily within the Bhagavad Gita? It is Krishna. So the Hare Krishnas need to understand the Bhagavad Gita and need to understand how it applies to their life in order to get closer to God. That all makes sense. The problem with, for me, the Bhagavad Gita as it is that it's basically a life application text, because if you open it up, it's all broken down into the original Sanskrit, the transliteration, the translation, and then you have the purport. And the purport is basically how that text itself is to be applied to get closer to Krishna. It's telling you, you need to understand this in order for you to live your life in the ISKCON way, to the Hare Krishna values. The problem as well with all of this is, one, this makes this an absolute nightmare to read. This is one of the most unfriendly ways of approaching a text I've ever come across. But also, this assumes that you know everything that happens around it. So there's a lot of story before the Bhagavad Gita, to where we meet Arjuna struggling with if he is to go to war and has his conversation with Krishna about what he is to do. And we also have a lot of story after, which is what happens when the battle commences. This is a name dump galore. It is a bombardment of information. If you have absolutely the diddly squat recollection of the Mahabharata, or you don't even know what the Mahabharata is, trying to read this is impossible. I've read like 400 pages of this, and I've just started to go past the purport. I have struggled my way through this. It's basically a life application text. It is not the Bhagavad Gita, it is a life application text. Does this mean that I've learned a little bit about Vaishnavism, which I wasn't really aware of, and about the Hare Krishnas? Yes, I've learned quite a bit, but that is not the idea of me reading the Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, I'm going to put this down. I'm not going to continue on. I'm going to read this translation, which is very helpful because it actually highlights in bold the important people that you just need to remember, and puts into italics those people who are mentioned, but, like, don't worry about it for the moment. So for my discussions going on in regards to the Bhagavad Gita, I'm just going to use this text. I'm going to start from scratch. I've taken 3 weeks from reading anything about the Bhagavad Gita, because this is not the text for me. And if you're a secular reader, or if you're interested in reading the Bhagavad Gita, and you just have, like, no understanding about what the Bhagavad Gita is, what happened, you're not interested in, the wider picture of the Mahabharata and where this all fits into it, or if you're not interested in understanding ISKCON, like, stay away from this version. This version is not for you. It's not helpful. In fact, it's a hindrance to trying to understand the text itself.